Man, we are so glad that you're here, and kind of a special day. A lot of you guys know the Hefners who are over here, and they used to be a part of Sound City, and then decided to move off to Wisconsin, and I tried my best to get them to stay. And
we tried our best to get you to come with.
You're right, you did. And so they're in town today for a short period of time, and we're excited that they're here. And so if you didn't get to see them before, make sure that you get a chance to see them. We're going to jump into our, I don't know what's going on today. Yeah, all kinds of issues. That's okay though.
Okay.
So we've been in this series. If today's your first day, one of the worst things that can happen the first time you visit a church is if they start talking about money, right? It's like, and I can tell you that we don't preach on money other than the idea of how can we give it away. That's our thing. But we've been in this series that's been planned for quite some time about our stuff, is what we call it. We all have stuff, right? I was thinking this week, have you ever, raise your hand if you've ever moved in your life. Okay, put your hand down. Raise your hand if you've ever helped someone move. Keep your hand up. Put your hand down if you never want to help anyone move again. Right? I for a little while, in order to support ourselves in ministry, there was a period of time when I started a moving business. And I had a friend who was in the moving business, and he told me it would be a good idea, and I shouldn't have listened, but I did. And so we were a subcontractor for a moving company, and I lost. I weigh about 165 right now. I was down to 128. And, he lied to me. He said, hey, all you got to do is get the moving crew out the door in the morning. There was no moving job that I or my son Connor didn't go on. Like, we went on every job. And I learned two things in the moving business and helping people move, because I had a friend that I just became convinced she just liked to move every year. Like, every year, she was like, can you help me move? And I was like, my goodness. And I learned, if you help somebody move, there's probably two statements they're going to tell you that are completely untrue. Okay, and I'm going to tell you. And when they go to move, you're going to hear them say this, and just go ahead and say in your mind, you're lying to me. Okay? Here's the first one. I'll have everything packed up. They won't. I promise you, they will not have everything packed up. They will have about half their stuff packed up, if you're lucky, and you will help them pack the rest. And here's the second statement. I don't have that much stuff. That's a lie too. Neither of these are true. Most everyone has more stuff than they think they do. We've moved multiple times, and I told my friend who liked to move every year, I would help her under one condition. She went and rented a 26-foot box truck every time, right? Because I didn't want to deal with the rain and all of her stuff getting wet. And the second thing was, I did not want to make more than one trip, all right? And I remember when we rented a 26-foot box truck, which is the biggest one that you can go rent, and putting all of our stuff in it to move from Florida to Kentucky, and having two thoughts. Number one was, this is all I have in the whole world. I can fit it on one truck. And my second thought was, where did I get all of this junk? And so we tend to accumulate things. I said at the beginning of this series, we know that if you walk around your neighborhood and people's garage doors are open and their garages are so full, they can't get their car in, right? And so Jesus, in case today's your first day here, he speaks more about our stuff and possessions than he does about prayer or faith. Like almost twice as much. Which is really interesting, almost like he understood we were going to have a problem with our stuff, right? And so we're going to jump into Luke chapter number 12 this morning. You probably might not see this, so grab your phone, go to Luke chapter number 12, verse 13, and we're going to stay in that chapter. I'll have a few sideline verses, but we're going to kind of stay there, because in this teaching, Don't worry about it, guys. It's all good.
Can we just interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
We didn't really announce Sound City Kids, too. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you're a kid and you want to go in the back, they would be glad to have you. Sorry, brother. You got to stay. All right. Thank you for that. All right. Luke chapter 12, verse number 13 is where we're going to stop. And he's going to tell us this story and some things in this chapter to get this point across. When you're living on mission, less stuff is actually more stuff. Okay? When you're living on mission, when you have a purpose in life that you're living out, having less stuff actually equates to more stuff in the long run. Okay? And I'll explain that as we go. So we're going to start in Luke chapter number 12, verses 13 through 21. All right? And they asked this, someone in the crowd is going to ask Jesus a question. He's going to answer the question, and he's going to tell a story and teach us something about our stuff. So it says, someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." All right? So his family had passed away, or his dad had passed away, or parents, or whatever, and he was going to get an inheritance, and he was like, my brother is the older brother, obviously, because that's how it worked in Jewish culture. And he's going to get the majority of the inheritance. Could you please tell him to divide it with me? But Jesus said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Can I say that again? Jesus said, your life, my life, doesn't exist. It's not fulfilled. It's not satisfying based on how many things you have in the abundance of possessions. You can have a little bit and be really happy, or you can have a whole lot of stuff and be really miserable. And he tells them a parable, a made-up story to illustrate a point, saying, the land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grains and goods. Now, let me just ask you. You're a farmer. You start producing more than you can put in your barn, or more than you can put in a storehouse, right? And so you decide to tear down the barns you have and build a bigger barn to store more stuff. Is there anything really wrong with that? Right? You produce, you don't want to just leave it laying out there to go bad. You want to make sure it can be utilized. And so up until this point in the story, it's not necessarily this really bad thing, right? And he says, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tear down my barns, build larger ones. I'll store all my grains and goods. But then he goes a step further. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry. He's like, I'm going to tell myself, I've got everything I need, and so what am I going to do? I'm just going to kick back, I'm going to eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, to that man, you fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. So this guy's like, hey, I'm going to have I'm going to live in the lap of luxury. I'm not going to have to do anything. I'm just going to be fat, get fat, and be lazy, right? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick back, not a care in the world. Nothing can touch me. And God says, you're a fool. You're going to die tonight. Which is sobering thought, right? And it should be a sobering thought for all of us, no matter what you have or don't have. None of us know the length of our life. As a matter of fact, James says your life is like a vapor. This morning, I poured my coffee, and Little Wayne was sitting at the bar there, and he looked, and you could see the steam coming up from it, and I looked over, and he was going. He's trying to cool it off for me. And that vapor, as he would blow, it would kind of move to the side, and then it was just gone. And James says that's what our life is like. We have no idea if we will make it home this afternoon, if we will be alive tomorrow. I like to think we would, but we don't know. We're not guaranteed. And this guy, that was the case. It was the end of his life, and he had spent all of this effort gathering up all these things. And God asked him, when you die, who's going to get all this stuff? Who's going to get it all? Whose will it be then? And he says, here's the point of all of this. This is the point of the made-up story. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Right? And you need to be rich toward God, not rich towards things. So I want to make a few observations from this about this story. I think, first of all, Jesus is telling us that focusing on more stuff can cause stress in our life. And it never guarantees us a future, right? You realize that? It doesn't matter how much stuff you have. It doesn't mean you have tomorrow or next week or next month. I have a couple thoughts on this. Stuff will not ensure a stable future, a secure future, or a peaceful future, will it? Not a bit. Your car can break down tomorrow. Your house, something could happen to your house. Something could happen to your bank account. Our nation could just go into a depression at a drop of a hat. It's so crazy. And having stuff never ensures a stable, secure, or peaceful future. As a matter of fact, I think stuff, too much of it, can provide a dissatisfaction in our life. That was this guy, right? He had big enough barns. He had plenty of stuff. But he was like, no, I'll build bigger barns and have more stuff. Right? I'll be able to store up more stuff. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 15 says this. The leech has 2 daughters. This is a crazy verse. The leech, we all know what a leech is, right? Gets on you, sucks the blood. A leech has 2 daughters. Their names are Give and Give. In other words, they're never satisfied. They always want more. And that's kind of the deal with having too much stuff or being wrapped up in having too much stuff. It can provide this dissatisfaction. It can provide a dissatisfaction with what you currently have and with where you currently are in life. He was like, man, if I just get this guy enough stuff, I can just relax and eat and drink and be merry. I think having more stuff causes us to stress over how to keep the stuff or how to get even bigger stuff. And I don't know if you've thought of this, it's kind of like an addiction, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I understand addiction right, you use the drug or the alcohol or whatever, and you have a feeling. And the next time or 10 times later, you have to use a little more, right? And then a little more, and then a little more to get that same high, that same feeling. That's stuff. You see, when you didn't have anything and you got a little something, you were really excited about it. But the more we get, the more it takes to satisfy. I knew a guy one time, and he and his family, this was when we lived in Florida, every weekend they were going to the beach. And they were renting a place on the west coast of Florida, and they were just having a great time. And they were going so much that they decided, we're just going to buy a place on the beach on the west coast. And they bought a place on the beach, and of course there was a payment that went along with that. And because of the payment, they ended up having to work more, and they never got to go to the beach. And we would all listen to that and say, man, you should have just been content where you were. But we have a real problem with that. And so focusing on more stuff, actually just causes more stress in our life. And Jesus is going to address that in the next part of the chapter, starting in verse number 22. And he's going to tell us that focusing on less stuff, I think, leads to less stress. Look what he says. This is after he told the story. He says to his disciples, therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, nor about your body, what you will put on. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much value are you than the birds? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? If then you are not able to do as small a thing as that, why are you anxious about the rest? He says, consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed or dressed like a lily, like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass, which is alive in the field today, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, oh, how much more will he clothe you? Oh, ye of little faith. And do not seek what you are to eat and what you are to drink, nor be worried. For all the nations of the world seek after these things, and your Father knows that you need them. Instead, seek His kingdom, and these things will be added to you. Yeah, Jesus speaks this word, and He's like, listen, don't worry about having all this stuff. It's not going to make you happy anyway. As a matter of fact, you don't even know how long your life is. But if you'll focus just on less stuff and not getting caught up in that, you know what will happen? He was like, I will take care of you. I love this part about the ravens, right? They can't store stuff up, and they don't worry about it. I was here yesterday morning. Greg, I met with your son yesterday morning. We had coffee together, and I came in here beforehand, and I put the tables away and put the chairs up. And when I went out, I know we have crows here. We don't have a lot of ravens, I don't think. But what we do have is seagulls, right? And I walked out, and there were 2 seagulls sitting on the white wall across the alley there. And I thought they were going to attack me. They were just going crazy. And I started walking out towards my vehicle, and one jumped up, and I was kind of like, oh man. And then the other one jumped up and, of course, lost something out of his rear end. I thought he was trying to hit me with it. And but they were just going nuts. And I thought, you know, those seagulls might have thought, I was looking around to see if there was a seagull chick or something. I mean, they were just aggressive. And I thought about those seagulls don't ever seem stressed out about where they're getting food. They just kind of do their thing, and God takes care of them. And Jesus is trying to get this point across to us. Don't get caught up in your stuff. When you're living on mission, He's trying to say, less stuff is more stuff. Paul understood this. In Philippians chapter 4, verses 10 through 13, he said, I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length you have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I am speaking of being in need. Paul, when he writes this, is in prison. And he says, I'm not in need. For I've learned whatever situation I am in to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. And then he says this famous verse that you hear a lot. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You see, Paul was not saying I can catch the winning touchdown or I can make the game-winning player. That's not what he was getting at. He was saying, I can get through anything with a little or with a lot because I've got Jesus. So if less stuff is more stuff, I think the question for all of us is, how should I manage my stuff? Right? Because you got a job, probably, you get paid, you know, you have things. It's not wrong to have things. It's wrong to get too focused on it. I think the Bible teaches us how to be content with less in order to live out God's mission. Ecclesiastes chapter 11. Listen to these verses, starting in verse number 1. He says, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. What does that tell us? If I throw it out, He's going to help you find it. It's coming back. He's saying, take your bread and throw it out on the water, and after not many days, it's going to come back to you. Now, I want you to think about that in terms of your possessions or your money or whatever. Like, if I give it away, if it all belongs to God, which is what we learned the very first part of this series, that our stuff is actually God's stuff, right? And we're just managers of it. So what he's saying is, if I give it away, he says he's going to give it back. Now, it may not be dollar for dollar. It may not even be $1. It may be that I give stuff away and I rarely get sick. It may be that I gave stuff away and God gives me something back. It may be that I give $1 and God gives me 10 back. I've seen that happen too. And that's a great day, right? We all like that investment plan, all right? And he says, hey, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. as you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning, sow your seed, and at evening, withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. Here's 2 points from this passage I want to get to you. He says, first of all, give generously. Give what you can. And he says there are unknowns in life. There's rain that comes. There are trees that fall. There are all these things that happen that we're not quite sure of. And we don't really understand it, right? I don't understand. Before you leave, get a good glimpse of Madison back there, right? Look at that little girl and think about how she had 3 babies in her body at the same time. That's kind of mind-boggling, okay? But just as mind-boggling is the fact that there's a baby inside of Liz, right? And it's being formed, and the bones are being formed, and I don't understand how that happens. I mean, I get the biology of it, but I don't understand how that happens. And just like we can't really understand that, we can't understand how God works. You see, we have this idea like, it's my stuff, and if I don't hold on to it, I won't get any more stuff. And God says, man, I am so different than that. If you use your stuff for me, guess what? I'll just give it back to you, and maybe more of it. And there are uncertainties in life. That stuff we have today, we don't even know that we'll have tomorrow. So we should be free with it. And so give generously. Here's the second thing. Give regularly. He says, don't put off sowing. Be ready to reap. Sow in the morning. Be ready to do what needs to happen in the afternoon. He said that's the way that you have to do it. It can't be, giving shouldn't be just a response to the need that's in front of you. It should be a pre-planned thing that you're ready for. Man, you want to really be blessed in life? Just take so much money a month and set it aside and say, when someone has a need, I've already got the money to help them meet that need. As opposed to, man, I feel really bad for you. You need some help, but I can't afford it today. Right? Imagine if it was already sitting over there, ready to go. All right? And so give generously and give regularly. If we go back to Luke, Jesus confirms this in verse 32 through 34. He says, fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Look what he says. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. Now, I'm not saying you should go sell everything you have this afternoon and come down to the mission and just hand $20 bills out. That's a mistake. What's that?
Mine went down up to 20.
Yeah. If you're going to do that, let me know. I'll make sure that I'm in line. All right? I'm kidding. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For he says this, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Jesus is trying to get this point across that don't get hung up in the idea of it's about how much stuff I can get. Really, according to Jesus, life is about how much stuff I can give. How much I can give. You know, we have the opportunity as a community, there's one thing I love about our church community, to focus on using our stuff to reach others. It's what being on mission is really all about. That's why in our church community, if you have a financial problem, our thought is if it's too big for you to overcome by yourself, come to the church. And we should be willing to share with one another, right? Maybe I have it right now and you don't, or maybe you have it later and I don't. And so we help one another in that way. But we also help people outside of our church family too. Inside of our church family first, but then outside of our church family as well. That's why 20% of everything that comes in we give away. Because we believe that that's important. And we probably do more than that, honestly. It's why we choose not to necessarily have our own building, right? To rent a space so that we can help others. Because I believe this whole story about Jesus is about how we show grace to other people and how we do that proactively, not just when we have no other choice.